Ryan Powell of I Run Far here with Scotty Mills after his 20th Western States finish in 2019. How are you, Scotty?
I'm tired, but I'm ecstatic with the ability to have completed the race in a time that, quite honestly, was one of my better for my age.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
You trained your ass off for this. If I can say from afar.
The last 2 years did not go well for me at the finishing this race. A lot of back issues and leaning, so I kind of committed myself this year, since it was number 20, to say I need to do this right. And one of the things I was able to do, I passed off the San Diego 100 RD ship to two new co-directors, and that allowed me much more time to focus on training.
And especially in May and June, when
when you need to. Yeah, so.
And not only like your running training was great, but you did finally you've started adding more stuff into your training.
Yeah, I think one of the things I've learned with older age is you can't just do it on running. You need to incorporate other things. And for me, what really worked well, probably from January through June, was a combination of yoga, going to a gym in a fitness thing called Orange Theory, more stretching, some weights, and kind of trying to not necessarily focus on high mileage, but trying to incorporate training that trains my whole body.
You did a lot of really impressive long runs.
Yeah, but slow ones. You know, not trying to race hard, but slow.
Now, when did you realize, maybe not incorporate later, but when did you realize that you really did need to start to include beyond running as part of your running?
Based on my finishes in 2017 and 18, which, you know, I finished, but they did not go well. And anybody who saw me would attest to that. They did not go well.
And you probably weren't happy with the fact of that. You finished, but
it was kind of embarrassing, because you don't want to finish a race where you're kind of falling down or leaning. And, you know, the president of the Western States Board, who does the announcing, made it real apparent to everybody that I was leaning to the right, leaning to the left. And so, anyway.
I chuckle a little bit, only because I was with you for your first listing experience.
Yeah, that's right. What year was that?
2006.
Yeah, so you know, I didn't lean a lot from 2006 until 2012, but you and I finished that year, and great picture of you, but a terrible picture of me, because I was leaning.
It's made
badly.
A few Western States programs, I think.
Yeah. Who do I blame? You?
Me.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
Thank you.
So we've been talking a little bit about the last couple years, but this has been a 37-year journey.
Yeah, my first Western States was 1982. And then it took me 20 years to get my 10th buckle. So 10 buckles took me 20 years. And then the next 10 buckles took me another 17 years. Yeah. And that's due to the fact that it's so difficult to get in the race, you know, with the lottery and everything.
I mean, like there were some long stretches where you just didn't get in. Yeah.
And especially the last couple of years. This is the last time I actually had a finish and got in the race was 2012. And no, that's not true. I got in 13, and that was my only DNF in 2013. The same thing. I went out at mile 90. So
it's interesting you mentioned that. Like over this last weekend, I thought about one of the regrets I've had in ultra running is you and me not teaming up again in 2013 and getting to that finish.
You're too fast.
I didn't finish that year.
Well, now you're too fast.
Wow.
For sure. Anyway.
So what have you seen evolve over these? Presumably you had a race before Western States, or did you have a before that?
You had to have a qualifier in 1981 to qualify for the 1982, and all it was 150 miler.
Yeah.
So my first ultra was American River 50 in 1981, and the first year I had a very respectable time, 21:29. Ironically, 10 years later, when I had my 10th belt buckle, my time was almost identical. It was 21:22. So from the 10th buckle through the 20th, though, my times slipped radically.
I would say more like 15th to 20th, because honestly, you were in that 21st place to early 30s for 15 or so finishes here.
Yeah. But I think what's really evolved, not only how difficult it is to get in the race, but the quality of the runners. Today's event at Western States is quite honestly hard to get your arms around the performance levels of these young elites. It's amazing. I just can't even understand how they can run that fast.
Yeah.
So it's all relative, I'm sure, but the sport has really changed from not only the popularity, but the performance levels.
How did you ever hear about an ultramarathon, or Western States in particular?
It's an interesting story. I lived in Sacramento at the time. I was in the Air Force, and everyone said, "Oh, you should go up to Auburn." Every Saturday or Sunday, there's a group up there doing trail runs, training for Western States. So a good friend of mine, Cheryl Summers, and I went up to Michigan Bluff, and sure enough, there were people up there, and we went on a run with a guy named Tom Zabertink. He was one of the first people to get like 7 buckles in the very early years, and he kind of mentored us into it, and we fell in love with the sport even before I ran the first year, you know. So that was kind of the beginning.
So about, I can't believe I can actually say it, but about 17 years ago, I remember you going for your 10.
Right.
And I believe around that time there was I'm going to do 10 and be done.
Yeah.
And I remember a couple times of late hearing, I'm going to do 20 Western States.
Yeah.
And I'm done.
Well.
And then.
Don't go there. Yeah, we'll see. You know, I love the sport, and I need to. My wife, Jean, you know,
Jean.
Yeah, she's been so supportive and understanding because she knows I love this sport. She knows I have a passion for it, and it's hard on her. Anybody who's crewed for someone they love, crewing stands for cranky runners, endless waiting, and Jean's been there for every one of my hundreds, and so she's kind of like, this is it, right? And I said, well, it is for now. You know, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Well, that's got to be hard too, because like it's different for a crew to see a runner struggling with some stomach issues or some blistering, as opposed to like the last couple years. Not this year so much, but the previous year's concern.
Yeah, my crew this year, and I have wonderful friends who have been with me, several of them over all 37 years. They were all extremely excited with the finish this year because I was upright, I finished strong, I had a good time, and that's makes them happy too because they don't like to see friends struggle.
Now, on the flip side of that is, you know, to be able to be an inspiration to everybody, to show what's humanly possible. What, are you 68 right now?
Yeah.
I mean, and you finished 4 hours under the cutoff.
Right.
And had a solid race.
Yeah.
Like, do you ever think about the fact that you can inspire people at 68 now, but at 70, at 72, 73, whatever, to show that this is possible?
Sure. You know, I and my wife, I say one thing, but I do. I think what I get the most pleasure out of in this sport is mentoring people, setting an example that you can do this with commitment, and this was all I do. The sport is characterized by the friendships that you create in the event, and that for me will still be the most special thing about ultra running, and specifically Western States. Now,
on the flip side of the being the inspiration and maybe doing some more Western States or other hundreds, the flip side is so few people get to run this. I'm sure you've thought about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's really sad for me because you want to motivate and encourage people to do this, but the reality of the situation is it's very difficult for some of the more popular races like Hard Rock and Western States for people to get in. So, it's kind of a double-edged sword from that perspective. So
I know in the past you've done that Western States Hard Rock double, and fortunately I think Jeannie's talked you out of that.
Yeah,
but you still have that kind of decisions to make in future years.
Yeah, I do want to get. I've got 9 Hard Rocks, so I want to get one more.
Yeah.
That will be the end of it for Hard Rock. But and I even told the people here at Western States, I love coming out to this event, whether I'm running it or not, and helping. And all the years that I did not get in Western States, I was at this event helping out, or in some capacity.
Helping out, heckling a little bit of.
Well, yeah, of course.
Do you have a favorite memory or two from all your years here?
I have several great memories. If I had to characterize one, it was probably as much as anything else when you and I finished together. We met up at mile 30. You were having a rough day, and I said, "Come on, Brian, let's run this in together." And we did. We spent 70 miles, and unfortunately, at the end, you looked great, and I was leaning.
But that was after we both had back and forth. So we each had our highs and lows, and I remember picking up our pacers at that race.
Yeah.
And when we picked up our pacers, we both said, "Get in the back," because you and I had already had like
well,
5 hours of running together, and like
as you recall, you were running towards the end much better than me, and I implored you to go on and finish, but you had no part of it, and that was a great friendship memory too.
So that was a good time.
Yeah.
Oh. Congratulations
Thank
on
you,
20 finishes,
And
Scotty.
thank you so much for all you do for the sport.
Well, and thank you. Like we're probably both good at the crowd. I mean, I was telling somebody that was going to interview you, and like that you've been such an ultrametro to me, and they're like, he is to everybody. And like you put on a bunch of races, you've done all these different things for the community, but like on an individual basis, you have mentored. If you were to look around this tent today, countless people.
Well, that is as much for me as it is for others because I get a lot of gratification.
It reflects back for sure.
So.
All right.
Well, thank you. Nice talking to you.
Yeah. And